So we learned this week that two of the president's adult children, Ivanka and Donald Jr., came very close to being charged with felony fraud for their sales tactics in marketing the Trump Soho building to would-be buyers. According to an investigation by ProPublica, The New Yorker, and WNYC New York, New York prosecutors were preparing a case against them in 2012, but it was dropped after the Manhattan District Attorney, Cyrus Vance, overruled his staff just after getting a visit from Mark Kasowitz, Donald Trump's attorney, who had donated $25,000 to Vance's campaign. Joining me now is Richard Painter, law professor and the former chief White House ethics lawyer for President George W. Bush. Richard, great to talk to you as usual. I want to read a little bit of the background here on this case, just for our audience to know what we're talking about. So in the spring of 2012, this is the ProPublica piece, Donald Trump's two eldest children, Ivanka Trump and Don Jr., found themselves in a precarious legal position. For 2 years, prosecutors in the Manhattan DA's office had been building a criminal case against them, and this is related to Trump Soho, a condo building, in which case apparently they were sending emails making clear they were aware that they were using inflated figures to try to market the building and lure buyers. And here's one more element. In one of the emails, according to 4 people who've seen it, the Trumps discussed how to coordinate false information they'd given prospective buyers. In another, according to a person who read the emails, they worried that a reporter might be onto them. In yet another, Donald Jr. spoke reassuringly to a broker who was concerned about the false statements, saying nobody would ever find out because only people on the email train of the Trump organization saw the email. Richard, how can that have happened and they have admitted in emails to defrauding buyers and they were not indicted or charged?
Well, it's very difficult to prove fraud, criminal fraud in real estate transactions. There's a lot of slick dealing in New York real estate. I used to practice law in New York, and still actually am a member of the New York Bar. And unfortunately, there's a lot of slick dealing in New York, and I have to say the Trump family has a reputation for being particularly sharp in their dealings, and they have for decades. Proving criminal intent is very, very difficult in these cases. And so I think that Cy Vance, who is very well respected as a prosecutor, probably made the right judgment call not to proceed. But it's very troubling that we have this level of dishonest dealing by people who are now associated with the President of the United States, and one of them, Ivanka, is now in the White House. And I have to say that this type of dealing would have been a disqualifier for anybody serving in the Bush administration, the Obama administration, or any previous administration.
Yeah, and let's talk a little bit about the ethics, too. You mentioned Cy Vance. There's a timeline just that the New Yorker and ProPublica, et cetera, put together in which it goes as follows. In 2010, the office opens an investigation into Ivanka and Don Jr. Then in 2012, Mark Kasowitz, Trump's lawyer, donates $25,000 to Cyrus Vance's re-election campaign, a contribution that was later returned. In 2012, Kasowitz visits with DA Vance. In August of 2012, that was in May, then in August, prosecutors dropped the case. Then in 2013, Kasowitz hosts a fundraiser for Vance and donates $32,000. Now, I should read the statement that Mark Kasowitz put up and that DA Cyrus Vance put up. Let's do Cyrus Vance's statement first. He says this was a 2-year investigation that never produced sufficient evidence to support a criminal prosecution. During the investigation, the luxury apartment purchasers reversed course and took the position that the sellers had not committed any crime against them. No outside attorney influenced my decision in this matter. And that's a spokesperson for Cyrus Vance. And Mark Kasowitz sent a statement saying, I donated to Cy Vance's campaign because I was and remain extremely impressed by him as a person of impeccable integrity. I've never made a contribution to anyone's campaign, including Cy Vance's, as a quid pro quo for anything. So those statements aside, is there an ethical problem here for Cyrus Vance?
Well, it is very difficult to prosecute cases if you can't get buyers of apartment units to come forward and be willing to support a criminal indictment, and that's critical. You need those witnesses. The campaign contribution system, of course, is a mess. We should not be electing prosecutors if they're going to have to take campaign contributions from lawyers. The campaign contribution was returned because that's the policy of the office and most offices, that if the lawyer has a case pending before the prosecutor, the campaign contribution needs to be returned. But Kasowitz, well, he has whatever reputation he has, but he played a game here. He gave a contribution, it was returned, and then he comes back with more. He doesn't have a lot of cases constantly in front of the Manhattan DA, so he got a big campaign contribution in afterwards. It certainly looks bad As I say, I think Cy Vance has a very good reputation in New York for making the right calls on these things. And Kasowitz and the Trump family have whatever reputation they've got. I'm not going to comment any further.
And I should note also that one of the things that hindered Cyrus Vance's case is that the settlement that the Trump team, the Trump Soho guys came to with the potential buyers, they gave them back their deposits, but they had to sign an agreement essentially not to cooperate with the prosecutor. I want to get your comment on one other aspect of this case. Of course, the Trump Soho, people may remember that name because one of the partners in it is Felix Sater, who is, of course, a figure that we've heard of in the Russiagate investigation. He ran the Bayrock Group, a real estate development firm. He's been convicted of assault. He's pleaded guilty to racketeering, and he's one of Trump's business partners who he pretends he doesn't remember. Your thoughts on that?
Well, that's another thing I remember from my time in New York City is that Donald Trump, after he didn't pay back the bankers and the bondholders on the Taj Mahal and several other deals, went bankrupt. The New York banks wouldn't loan to him. He couldn't find partners in New York. New Yorkers have an annoying habit of they want to be paid back. So he had to go get money somewhere. And we all don't know where he got his money, but we see a lot of Russian names coming up, and this is exactly what we need to find out, how much of the debt capital and the other joint venture capital in the Trump business empire is coming from the Russians. And that's what Bob Mueller better be figuring out, because that's the real danger for our country.
Absolutely. Richard Painter, thanks as always. Always appreciate talking with you. Thank you. And coming up, Rob Reiner leads an all-star panel on the story that never quits. Yep, Russiagate is next on AM Joy.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.